I'm Erin Lucy, and welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited about today's video because I'm talking about everything I read in the month of October. And I've been doing these combined wrap-up videos, but I just read so much in October that I feel like it needed its own time. So yeah, I'm really proud of myself. I've essentially replaced a lot of my scrolling and screen time with reading, which yeah, I didn't really expect to do, but the past couple months have just been so good. I feel like I've been so on top of it, and in terms of the reading stuff. So yeah, it's been really fun. I feel like I've read so much and can't wait to talk about them all. So I'll just go ahead and get started. The month started off with Sorcery and Small Magics, and I actually read the art copy of this. It wasn't out yet. And then it was the Fairy Loot edition. I think it was adult Fairy Loot for the month of September, I believe, or October. Anyway, I'm a little behind because I'm in the US and the shipping is all much later. But anyway, I'm very excited though about this edition because it is the most gorgeous sprayed edges. So I feel very great about that, and I did end up really liking this. So yeah, essentially this is about Leo, and I think his full name is Leovander something. And he goes to this magic school, and he is a scriber, which means his magic, he mostly makes spells and writes them. And this whole story starts off with him getting paired up with Sebastian Grimm, who is a caster. So there generally are scribers and casters actually do the magic, and they can kind of, both do a little bit of the other one, but it's harder, takes more of a toll on them. So they get paired up for a lot of these things, and Sebastian and Leo are already kind of rivals, although rivals is not a great word. Leo just kind of torments Sebastian, and so they kind of hate each other. But Sebastian is pretty chill and nice overall. So they get paired up, and in one of their first assignments, they collectively cast a spell on Leo that essentially makes him do everything that Sebastian says. So it's kind of this control spell, which is super legal. So they have to figure out how to not tell their professors with still trying to fix it essentially. So they set out on a journey to do this. And again, Sebastian's pretty cool. So he's not taking advantage of this, but there's a lot of tension between them. And yeah, I will start by saying definitely the first in a series. It's all very set up, background. There is a plot, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very well paced and interesting. So essentially it gives the one thing that was kind of interesting about it is it gives, in the beginning, it kind of gives a Deadly Education, magical school vibes, and I really love that. But then it pretty quickly turns into more of magical forest adventure, and I really liked both. Overall, really well done. I was just a little bit confused and thrown by that, but I also just had no idea what to expect, which overall is I think a good thing. So overall, good. That's just if you're expecting magical school the whole way, I feel it's a little bit more of magical forest. Anyway, so yeah, I really like this. I thought it was great. Next we have Strange Beasts of China, and my friend recommended this book to me. And this is essentially, it takes place on Earth where beasts live with humans. And the whole thing is kind of documenting basically a natural history of these beasts. But it's very, very different vibes from A Natural History of Dragons and Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. It's very different. It's a little more urban fantasy, stranger, and it's all kind of tied up and told in this way that's also trying to uncover this mystery. So it's just not what I expected. Overall, I enjoyed this and I would recommend it, but I definitely recommend checking it out, reading a little into it before going full bore into this. It just was way weirder than I expected it to be. The first couple of chapters, I'd read the first chapter and see how you feel, because it's very strange. Yeah, weird vibes, but if you kind of weird fantasy with a mystery thrown in there, this is definitely a good one to check out. Okay. Next, we're just gonna fly through these. Bryn. Okay, I could not remember her name. So I next read In the Company of Witches, which is very practical magic-y vibes. Cozy mystery in a cute little fall town. Essentially, this woman, Bryn Warren, she lives with her aunts, and they have this B&B in this town, and one of their guests dies. And that's how this all starts out, especially because this woman's death is blamed on one of the aunts, Aunt Nora, I believe. And so Bryn goes out to, you know, prove her innocence and uncover this mystery / solve the death of this woman, Constance Graves. So Bryn has also lost her husband. I think it's been about a year. And so there's also an element of grief in there. So yeah, I overall really enjoyed this. It was very like slow, cozy mystery. It's not romance. I kind of went in thinking this was going to be romance and it wasn't. So that was just one thing. In the Company of Witches. Next we had Little Fires Everywhere. This was from my old TBR pick. And I will spoiler, I did not finish my TBR this month and I'm a little sad about that, but that's okay. Still had a great reading month, so counting the win. So essentially this takes place in this town called Shaker Heights, and it surrounds this family, the Richardsons, and I think they have 3 kids, I think. And they also have this like townhome, these rentals, and they rent out one of them to Mia Warren and her daughter. And so they come and live, and the story is about them living in this neighborhood and the impact that these two families like have on each other, particularly that the Richardsons are this like wealthier white family, and yeah, their world is kind of like flipped upside down by these characters and like what they bring and open their eyes to a lot of different things. So a little bit of mystery in here, but it's mostly this like literary fiction. And I know I'm very late to the game on this, but I do recommend. I thought it was good. Yeah, overall, really good. Enjoyed it. And I do want to watch the TV show now. I will say, and I'm noticing this as I'm going, I feel like it was overall a really good reading month in that like I had a lot of like 4 stars, like solid, really good books. Would recommend. I didn't have any 5 stars like completely blow me out of the water, but I also didn't have any like terrible books. So that was good. Yeah, just spoiler, I feel like they're all gonna be like mostly recommend, but not like completely amazing. So next we have The Dagger and the Flame, and this is a romantasy that takes place in the city of Fantôme. And it's this world in which shade magic is prevalent and essentially takes different forms, but all kind of involves this shade. And wow, I'm terrible at remembering anybody's name. Oh, right. Seraphina and Ransom are the main characters, and the story is told from their points of view. And Seraphina, her house burns down and her mom dies towards the beginning of the book. And so she goes to take shelter with the Cloaks. So the city's run by these Cloaks and Daggers. The Cloaks are like these thieves, and the Daggers are assassins. So she goes to take refuge with them and is becoming a thief. So a lot of her journey kind of follows that. At the same time, Ransom is a Dagger, so he's an assassin, and his boss gives him Seraphina as his next mark. So begins this like weird attraction / pull he has to Seraphina. It's very hate to love kind of situation. It is YA, but especially for YA, I did enjoy this. I thought it was very intriguing and interesting. It is also the first in the series. So yeah, I'm sure there will be more, and it definitely like is setting up for some of that. Okay, so next we have Daisy Darker, which was probably my like lowest rated of the month. And this is a mystery. I particularly read this because it takes place, I believe, on Halloween or close to it. Yeah, like October 30th, 31st. And essentially, Daisy, it's her grandmother's 80th birthday. And her grandmother always said that she would like die when she was 80. So it's like a very significant birthday. And she's having this party at her house, and all their like relatives are invited. And it's very like closed door mystery. So there's these characters on the island, mostly family, that show up, and they all have pretty terrible backstories. So they all like have a reason to want her dead. Anyway, stuff takes place throughout the course of this night. It is very much a mystery. Essentially, the grandmother shows up dead, and they have to like figure out what's going on. other things happen. I'm not going to say any more because there's a lot of like mystery involved in this one and backstory. So I thought it was overall interesting. Like, I'm glad I read it, but I did find it to be pretty predictable and kind of saw through, I think, a lot of the mystery. So that's just why it was the lowest rated. I didn't find myself like completely wowed by it. Yeah, a lot of the characters are also really infuriating, but that's kind of to be expected in a mystery like this. So if you like Closed Door, definitely. Yeah, it's like essentially no one can leave the island because the tide is high, and they live on this island, or their grandma's house is on this island, where unless you go by boat, you can't get there on land unless it's low tide. All right. Oh yes. Okay. The Spellshop. This was probably one of my favorites from the month, and it is a very cozy mystery. I feel like I had, despite this being like really popular right now, I kind of had middle of the road expectations. And I think it's just because I like cozy fantasy, but it doesn't usually like blow me out of the water. Yeah, this one, I just like loved it though. It was so cozy. Essentially, Keela is a librarian at this great library of Elysium, and she is escaping. Essentially, there's like this like revolution happening in the capital, so she escapes, and she has this sentient spider plant, which is really cute, and they have very cute conversations throughout the whole book. And they escape this library. Everything's like burning down, so she grabs a bunch of books and they escape, and they go back to her home island where she grew up, which is this like remote outlying island, and where everyone is very cute and neighborly, of course. And she starts this jam shop, and it's just so freaking cute. It's adorable. There's also like enough plot there that I was like very intrigued the whole time. I wanted to know what was going on. There's a really cute romance. It's just all very wholesome and cute, and I loved it. I highly recommend. I thought it was great. Just very comforting vibes. The plot side of it is definitely not as strong, but that's like not really the intent. It's very cozy fantasy. So, all right. Next we had Bicycles by Nikki and Giovanni, and this is a poetry collection. It is love poems, and I love this. They're brilliant. They're beautiful. I don't really know how else to describe it. Just like the wording and the prose, it was just beautiful. Highly recommend. It's very short and yeah, very cute. So I'd had this on my shelf for a really long time because the author came to speak at my undergrad, and finally got around to reading this. All right, next is The God of the Woods by Liz Moore, and this is one that I saw literally everywhere this summer. It's a good summer read. It's about a summer camp, so I recommend holding it for summer. But I really wanted to read it, and I finally got my hands on it. It took me a little while because I feel like it was just so popular and I couldn't find it anywhere. But it's essentially about this summer camp, and this girl goes missing at the summer camp, and the girl who goes missing is the daughter of this really wealthy family that lives kind of adjacent, so it's all in the same location. Kind of hard to explain, but not only that, but it was actually her brother that went missing years before, and he was never found, and still this mystery that has not been solved. So this takes place in a kind of dual timeline of going back and like looking at this disappearance of her brother and then her disappearance. And I thought it was really good. Overall, really great book. Yeah, so it goes back and forth between the 50s and the 70s, kind of. I think there's a couple of other points of view in there, but yes. And there's all sorts of interesting things about the characters in there and this like really wealthy family and how much they're able to control certain narratives because of their like wealth and power and who they are. So yeah, overall, really good. I think that because it was so hyped and everybody like was talking about it for so long, it became a tiny bit overhyped for me, but definitely worth reading, and I did really enjoy it. It's got really interesting mystery, lots of really great characters, and the writing was great, and yeah. So next we had our one nonfiction of the month, and that ended up being The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs by Steve Brusatte, and I so love this. It's very nerdy. So it basically tells the story of the dinosaurs from the beginning or the extinction at the end of the Permian into the Triassic and throughout their rise and then fall. So yeah, essentially the mass extinction that happened at the end of the Jurassic. And I just found this so fascinating. I thought it was really well done. There's a lot of really interesting species and things that they talked about in here. There's also some some paleontology like history, which was the only part that like verged on a little bit dry, but I think this book did a pretty good job of balancing that. Like it wasn't too much. I've found that in popular science books there's this like push to do that more, to like talk more about like the person's life and autobiography, and I don't love that. I kind of really like sticking to the more sciencey side of it, and I think if you throw in here and there kind of some of that, it's fine, but I think this book did a really good job of balancing that. It had some like history of the field, a little bit autobiographical, but mostly about the dinosaurs, and I just thought it was great. I thought it was so good. The only thing that could have like improved for me really was that I wanted more drawings / pictures, because there's not really many, and I feel like it's just like such a cool opportunity to do more of that in here, because there's like, we're talking about all these species that are extinct that nobody has any idea for a lot of them what they look like, and I feel like this could just have improved so much by having those. Just could have made it a more fun reading experience. Still overall like enjoyed this so much and highly recommend. Okay. We have 2 more. First, we have A Visit from the Goon Squad by Jennifer Egan. And this is actually one that I put on my TBR because I really wanted to read Candy Cows, which came out more recently, and then I found out that it's actually the second in kind of a series, like they're tied, and I am very kind of strict about that. Like I like to read things in order. So I went ahead and read A Visit from the Goon Squad, which did win a Pulitzer, so I'm really glad I read it. I think it's also on the New York Times 100 Best Books of the 21st Century list. So there's also that, and it's kind of what I expected it to be. It's very heavy on like the rock and roll history, which is not super my forte, but I did find it very palatable and like interesting to read despite that. Each chapter is like a different story, but they're all connected. It's kind of like how High We Go in the Dark, which was one that I really loved that had like similar vibes, and I do really like that way of storytelling because all the characters like connect, but you get to hear from each one and at different points of time throughout this. So that's the only thing that's like a little bit confusing, is like the timeline and characters, because it's like told in this like alternate way, can be a little bit confusing. You know, you have to like revisit where you're at and who you're with. But it essentially follows a variety of characters, but particularly this producer, Benny, and this woman who is his assistant, Sasha, and them throughout their lives and like the people they interact with. And yeah, there's even this like multimedia aspect of it. So there's an entire chapter that is a PowerPoint, which I just thought was really fun, and I thought was really cool. I will say for that, I'm really glad I had downloaded the audiobook, because I feel like the way it was read really helped me that like give that PowerPoint more meaning. Yeah, so A Visit from the Goon Squad. And then last but not least is A Dark and Secret Magic. And this I very intentionally read like the week of Halloween. It's so perfect for Halloween. It's got like the build up to Halloween vibes. It's so fun. Essentially, Hecate is this witch who lives, I think it's, I don't remember what their coven is called, but she and her sisters are part of this coven in the East Coast, New England area. And her sister Miranda sends her this message. It's like, oh, like we're gonna host at our mother's house, manor, gonna host someone, and that is, yeah, you have to basically prepare. So her sisters live apart, and their mom died, I think it's within the last year. And so there's a lot of like emotion tied to that. But at the same time that is all happening, this like guy from a rival coven who she has met once before when they were young shows up on her doorstep. And it's like this coven that is kind of like taboo in this witch community. And so yeah, so begins their adventure, uncovering a lot of secrets that her mother had. So it's just such good, cute, perfect Halloween vibes. It's like cozy, but also full of adventure, and there is like a certain dark aspect to it. So it fulfilled a lot of things for me, and I just like highly enjoyed this. It was so perfect for Halloween. It'd probably be great into November, but it's just such a fun vibes. With that is everything that I read in the month of October. Again, it was just such a good reading month, and I feel like I really, I don't know, I just read a lot of different things too, spanned some different genres. There's a couple of things that I started or read parts of, like the Bloody Chamber in October, but didn't completely finish, so I'll talk about those in the November/December wrap up. I'm not sure how I'll do that yet, but yeah, so overall a really great reading month. Can't wait to hear what you've been reading. And yeah, especially those like seasonal vibes. I'm just like super loving that right now. So yeah, thanks for watching and I hope you have a great day. Bye.